Closing a $10 million deal felt like standing on the edge of everything I'd worked for, with the world finally acknowledging the weight I had carried alone for so many years. Every sleepless night, every cancelled weekend, every time I missed a family gathering to chase the next big meeting, it all led to this. I wasn't just securing a contract. I was closing the kind of deal that could change not just my life, but the entire direction of the company I built from the ground up. I still remember the exact moment the last signature was inked, 7:42 p.m. I looked down at my Cartier, heart pounding but steady, and told myself, this is it. The moment I'll never forget. At the time, I thought that memory would be about triumph. I had no idea how wrong I was. The client was the kind of eccentric businessman who loved theatrics. Instead of a quiet wire transfer and polite congratulations, he insisted on what he called the ceremonial close. He handed me a black leather duffel bag, elegant, heavy, and symbolic. It was filled with high-grade replica bills, meant to represent the real transaction scheduled to be wired Monday morning. It was ridiculous, really. But I smiled and played along, appreciating the gesture. In his mind, it was like handing me a physical version of success, something I could actually carry home. When I walked through my apartment door that night, my body ached from exhaustion, but my spirit buzzed with pride. Elena, my wife of 6 years, stood in the living room wearing a satin robe and holding a half-filled wine glass. Her eyes lit up as I stepped in, and her gaze shifted quickly to the bag in my hand. "What's that?" she asked with a teasing smile. I walked over, kissed her lightly on the forehead, and set the bag on the table. "A trophy," I told her. $10 million in proof. The deal's officially done." Her eyes went wide, shimmering with surprise and excitement. "Is it real?" she asked. I laughed softly. "Not really. It's just for show. All fake bills. The real money's in escrow, transferring first thing Monday." She laughed with me, but there was a flicker in her expression I didn't notice at the time. Something calculating, maybe? Her hand lingered on the bag a bit too long. "You trust me with this?" she asked in a tone that was half playful, half curious. I shrugged. "Of course I do. You're my wife." She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Sweet software, dangerous hardware. I'll keep it in the closet tonight, just to be safe." I nodded, not thinking twice. The deal was done. Life was good. I had no reason to question anything. I collapsed into bed moments later, barely having the energy to pull the sheets over myself. The weight of years lifted off my chest that night. I slept like a man who believed he had finally won. When I woke up the next morning, the light outside was sharp. I rolled over to find the other side of the bed cold and empty. At first, I assumed she had gotten up early. But something felt wrong. I got up slowly and walked to the closet. Empty. Her clothes were gone. Jewelry drawers cleaned out. I checked the nightstand. No phone. No charger. A cold rush ran through me. I stumbled to the kitchen, hoping she had just stepped out. But there was no breakfast, no coffee mug, no scent of anything familiar. Only a neatly folded note sitting alone on the counter. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It read, "Thanks for the money, babe. I'm starting over with my boyfriend. Good luck starting from scratch. Elena." I stood there, frozen in place, reading that note over and over. There was no apology, no shame. Just cruelty written in clean handwriting. But then, slowly, something rose inside me. A grin. A dry, quiet laugh. Because the duffel bag she had stolen, the one she thought would launch her into a new life, was filled with fake money and something she didn't know I'd placed there. A small, nearly invisible GPS tracker sewn into the lining. She hadn't stolen success. She had stolen bait. And she just walked herself straight into the trap. Elena thought she was slick. That much was clear. She must have waited for the perfect moment. When my breathing slowed, my body sunk deep into the mattress, and the weight of the world finally loosened its grip on me. That's when she made her move. Slipped quietly from bed, tiptoed to the closet, reached for that expensive-looking black duffel bag, and disappeared into the night like she was the star of her own cheap crime drama. I imagined the scene playing out in her head, all cinematic and slow motion, her whispering to herself, "He'll never see it coming." And she was half right. I didn't see it coming, not from her. Not like this. But what she didn't know was that I had seen something like this coming for a long time. Not from her specifically, but from someone. From somewhere. It was the risk that came with building something valuable. Because when you work in high-stakes business long enough, you stop seeing betrayal as an if, it becomes a when. You stop trusting the sparkle in someone's eyes, the charming laughter at dinner, the warm hand on your shoulder. You start preparing for the day that hand might stab you in the back. And that's exactly what I had done. Months before the deal even neared closing, I'd already had the bag custom made. It looked perfect, even felt perfect. High-grade leather, authentic stitching, even weight distribution. But inside? Nothing but stacks of legal replica bills, professionally printed for realism, the kind used in movies and training simulations. And hidden in the bottom lining, where no one would think to look, was a GPS tracker disguised as a branded label tag. It wasn't meant to protect the money. It was meant to protect me, from the very situation unfolding before me now. I walked calmly to my home office and powered up my computer. My fingers didn't shake. My breathing was steady. This wasn't panic. This was confirmation. I logged into the tracking app linked to the Sonin GPS tag. And there it was, moving steadily southbound at 68 miles per hour, pinging just outside the city on Highway 14. I zoomed in. She was on the move. But it wasn't just the bag I had eyes on. I had set up my cloud security system to save everything for 72 hours. I pulled up the overnight footage. 2:17 a.m. Elena walked out the side door in a black hoodie and leggings. She moved quickly but not hurriedly. This was planned. She'd packed ahead. I could tell. 2:19 a.m. She stopped near the curb. Someone approached. He was taller than her, with shaggy hair and a familiar slouch. The camera wasn't in HD, but I didn't need high definition to know who it was. Kevin. My old gym buddy. The guy who used to stop by for poker night. The guy who once told me, "If I had a wife like yours, I'd never leave the house." He said it with a laugh. But I remember the way he looked at her. I'd brushed it off back then. Together, they heaved the bag into his car and drove off. I froze the frame and studied it. Kevin's smug face. Elena's satisfied smile. For a moment, I felt something stir. Betrayal, maybe? Humiliation. But then, slowly, I grinned again, because I knew exactly where they were headed. Kevin rented a cabin about 40 minutes out of town. Cheap, barely furnished, more like a hunting shack than a home. But to them, it probably felt like the start of something. The stolen escape to a new life. I pictured them opening that bag by candlelight, eager to run their fingers through what they thought was $10 million in cold, hard cash. But instead they'd find stacks of worthless paper. No gold mine. Just dust. And right on cue my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered on speaker, sipping my coffee like it was just another Tuesday. Elijah. Elena hissed through the line, her voice barely holding it together. What the hell is this? Good morning, sunshine. I replied calmly. How's the cabin life? You gave me fake money. No, Elena. You stole fake money. That's a big difference. You planned this? You bet I did. You're sick. No, I replied, tone even. I'm prepared. And you just proved why I have to be. Then I added without a hint of hesitation. By the way, you and Kevin might want to start moving. What are you talking about? I refreshed the tracker. Because I just reported the bag stolen. And I gave them your names, and your location. You wouldn't, oh, but I already did. Then I hung up. I set the phone down and stared out the window, watching the wind move through the trees like nothing had happened. The silence in the house felt heavier now, not because of grief, but because of clarity. There was no more guessing, no more pretending. Everything was in motion now, just as I had planned. 20 minutes after I ended the call, the GPS signal stopped. They must have realized something was wrong. Maybe the signal light blinked. Maybe they figured out the bag wasn't real. Or maybe Elena just panicked and screamed something like, "It's a setup!" Either way, the bag was no longer moving. That, too, was part of the script I'd written in my head months ago. People like Elena and Kevin always assume their greatest threat is being caught in the act. What they forget is that panic creates patterns. And I had mapped them out in advance. I didn't need to guess what they were doing. They'd either abandoned the car on a back road or tossed the bag into a ditch thinking that would erase the trail. But this wasn't just about the tracker anymore. I'd already submitted everything to the police that morning, even before I called her. The theft of symbolic corporate property tied to a high-value transaction, complete with time-stamped surveillance footage, license plate data, and signed ownership documents. It might have looked like a prank to someone on the outside. A bag of fake money, a dramatic wife, a bad friend. But in business, it was something more. Something bigger. Especially when the company who issued that symbolic handoff copied their legal team into the report. And when that company is partnered with federal vendors, you don't just get a slap on the wrist. You get immediate response. You get teeth. At exactly 10:12 a.m., I received a message from my attorney. Attached was a photo that stopped me in my tracks. Not because I was shocked, but because of how perfect it was. Kevin was face down on the hood of a police cruiser, hands cuffed behind his back, his flannel shirt wrinkled and half untucked like he'd just woken up from a nightmare. Elena stood behind him, barefoot on the gravel, tears streaming down her cheeks, screaming at the officers. Her hair was a mess. Her robe hung open like she hadn't even bothered to get dressed before the chaos arrived. The bag lay in the grass next to the cruiser, wide open and filled with shame. The caption below the photo was short and clean. Arrested without incident. Bag recovered. Contents confirmed. Charges pending. Press felony charges or walk away. I sat with that question longer than most people would expect. Because it wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about consequence. Justice. Letting someone know they crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. I thought about what it would do to her future. I thought about what it had already done to mine. Then, 2 days later, I found myself in a small conference room at the precinct, the walls bare except for a framed flag and a few peeling posters about ethics and reporting fraud. Across the table sat the detective, my lawyer, and 2 legal aides from the DA's office. Elena and Kevin were being held in a separate area. They hadn't been officially charged yet, but the pressure was building. All eyes were on me. I calmly handed over the original footage, signed the paperwork verifying the bag's ownership as company property, and authorized one final detail. I agreed to drop felony-level charges, but on one condition, that the arrest record remain public. No ceiling. No backroom favors. Her lawyer tried to argue. Pleaded with me. She has no priors, he said. This could ruin her life. Think of her reputation. I looked him in the eye, and my voice didn't waver. Oh, I am thinking of her reputation. That's why I'm doing this. He blinked, speechless. I stood, gathered my papers, and before I walked out, I said the words I'd waited to say since the moment I found that note. Tell her good luck starting from scratch. Elena was released on bail a few days later. No felony charges, at least not yet, but the aftermath was already irreversible. She had walked out of that precinct thinking maybe, just maybe, she could still salvage the life she had. That somehow, with enough spin, enough silence, she could bury this. But she underestimated the speed of destruction in a digital world. The moment that arrest photo hit the local gossip sites, the dominoes began to fall faster than she could blink. One image, one caption, her barefoot on the gravel, her face twisted with rage, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, was all it took. Suddenly, the story wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a public scandal. And in a world that loves to chew up scandal, Elena became a full-course meal. Her phone must have started ringing non-stop. Friends demanding explanations. Coworkers distancing themselves. Her boss didn't even wait for the week to end. She was let go the very next morning. No meeting. No conversation. Just a sterile email from HR citing reputational risk. Her accounts on social media, once filled with vacation photos and curated couple selfies, were now flooded with comments. Words like liar, gold digger, snake, and homewrecker. She turned off the comments after a few hours. Then she tried turning off the accounts. But it was too late. The screenshots were already everywhere. But the deepest cut didn't come from the public, it came from her family. I hadn't said a single word to them. I didn't need to. Because the internet did what I never had to. Her mother emailed me 2 days later. It was short. Just a few lines. But it said more than any courtroom or police report ever could. Elijah, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. This is not the daughter we raised. You didn't deserve this. We support whatever decision you make. I stared at that message for a long time, but I never replied. What was there to say? The truth had already spoken. It didn't need my voice. And while Elena was unraveling, her life coming apart thread by thread, I rebuilt. Quietly. Powerfully. The $10 million deal? It went through flawlessly. My client, the same eccentric man who handed me the fake cash trophy, was so impressed by how I handled the attempted theft that he introduced me to 3 new corporate partners. Real people. Big money. Bigger opportunities. Within a month, my firm expanded into 2 new markets. I hired a lean, loyal leadership team, people who earned trust instead of asking for it, and we started building faster and sharper than ever before. But I didn't stop there. I wrote. I sat down one night and poured everything into an article on LinkedIn. No names. No finger pointing. Just a message. The title? What I learned about business after someone I loved tried to steal everything. In less than a week, it went viral. Not because of drama. Not because people knew who it was about. But because the message hit a nerve. Guard your empire, even from those who smile beside you. I received hundreds of messages from professionals, men, women, CEOs, interns, telling me how that article made them rethink everything. Speaking offers rolled in. A publishing house reached out. Even a documentary pitch landed in my inbox. Meanwhile, Elena tried to claw her way back into some version of dignity. She moved into a small 1-bedroom rental in a rundown part of Crestview, far from the high-rise condo we once called home. She lived quietly, but the silence around her wasn't peaceful, it was isolating. I didn't contact her, didn't send messages. But I did send one package. It was a small envelope, delivered to her new apartment by someone who owed me a favor in real estate. Inside was a single fake bill, the same kind she tried to build her new life on. Alongside it, a flash drive containing the full surveillance footage of her betrayal, and a handwritten note in clean black ink. This is what you stole. This is what you lost. This is why you'll never matter to me again. No threats. No anger. Just truth. The kind of truth that doesn't yell, it echoes. 1 year passed. 12 months. 52 weeks. And with each one, I felt a little lighter. It's strange how quickly your world can change when you finally cut away the rot, when you stop watering the weeds and start planting seeds that actually grow. I wasn't the same man who once handed over his trust in a leather duffel bag, thinking love would protect it. I wasn't the husband who waited quietly for his wife to stop looking over his shoulder for someone richer, someone more exciting. I was sharper now. Quieter maybe, but clearer. Wiser. And richer in every way that mattered. The business I'd built from nothing had grown beyond what I imagined. We didn't just expand into new cities. We expanded into new industries. I built an executive team I trusted not because of loyalty they promised, but because of integrity they demonstrated. People who stayed late without being asked. People who took ownership without passing blame. The kind of people who didn't just show up for success, they earned it. And I surrounded myself with them. Not to replace what I'd lost, but to reflect what I'd become. My name started to carry a different weight. Not just as a businessman, but as a voice, someone people listened to. The LinkedIn article that had gone viral months earlier kept circulating. I was invited to speak at leadership summits, entrepreneur panels, even podcasts about betrayal and resilience. Not once did I mention Elena by name. I didn't have to. The story wasn't about her anymore. It was about the lesson, the recovery, the rebuilding. My pain had become someone else's roadmap. And yes, I started dating again. Slowly. Cautiously. I wasn't looking for fireworks or fairy tales. I wasn't looking to be completed. I was already whole. And that made all the difference. I didn't need anyone to prove my worth or fill a void. I had filled it myself, brick by brick, day by day. Every scar she left behind had become a piece of my armor. Not something I hid, but something I wore with quiet pride. Then one morning, exactly 1 year to the day since that deal was signed, the deal that changed everything, I received a message. It wasn't from a friend or a colleague. It was from a burner account. No profile photo. No identifying information. Just a single message. You won. I lost everything. Hope you're happy. I didn't need to ask who it was. I didn't need a signature. The voice behind those words was one I had memorized, once upon a time. And as I stared at the screen, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't even feel vindicated. I just reflected. Because by now, I understood something she never had. Winning isn't about making the other person suffer. It's about building something so strong that no one like them could ever touch it again. It's about creating a life so grounded in truth and earned respect that betrayal becomes irrelevant. She hadn't lost everything. She just never earned anything to begin with. So I typed one final message, simple and clean. You didn't lose everything, Elena. You just never earned anything. Then I hit block, deleted the thread. And just like that, she was gone. For good. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't rage or retribution. It's not a courtroom victory or a screaming match on the front lawn. Sometimes, the best revenge is quiet. It's graceful. It's building castles on the ashes of everything they thought they could destroy, and letting them watch, powerless, from a distance they'll never cross again. When they finally understand what they threw away, they don't see a second chance. They see the gate closing forever. And you? You don't even need to look back.